And welcome, Raise Your Inner Game. Today, I'm David Levin. This is our Friday episode, so we're talking about the inner game of life. Tuesdays are for the mental game of sports and competition. Fridays for the rest of our lives. So how are you this week? Man, oh man, it's the 4th of July today. Happy Independence Day if you're here in the States or if you celebrate. Not great to think about where things are with our beautiful democracy right now compared to the vision of our founders, but we will not think about that right now and enjoy the day instead. Things are good here. Weather's been great. A little hot, but not too bad. Everyone's in the thick of a pretty busy summer this year. We just sent Francis off for a month in Guatemala. That's wild. It's an exchange program with the family down there, and their school year is synced differently. So she'll actually be in school while she's there, which is interesting. And then their son will come stay with us this November when he's on break and we're in school. Anyway, that's very cool. Peter's still working pretty close to full time and also just finished his summer class, so things should open up a bit for him. Feeling good about that. Margaret and I are just plugging away with summer living. She's actually training for a triathlon next month. And of course, there's tons to do in the garden. It's keeping her busy. And I'm talking with you, which is lovely. Also working on music, which is also pretty fun. So that's the report from Lake Viroqua. We don't have a lake, just an old NPR reference there. Hope your summer is also going swimmingly. Plenty to talk about this week. The horrible big tax bill that just passed. Another bad Supreme Court decision. Some new and improved Trump corruption. We'll take another look at gratitude in our lives. Talk about having creative projects also in our lives. A 2-part challenge this week. And some more new recommendations. All right, we'll start with ups and downs. So what gave me a lift this week and what things are pulling me down? My first up, Peter and I went to La Crosse last weekend to see the new F1 movie in a real theater. This one had those big, comfy, reclining chairs, great sound. Pretty fancy experience for us small-town folk. We also liked the movie. More on that later, but it's just fun and nice to have dad and son time like that. I finished another new song. I think I mentioned last week. This one came together very quickly. I have to say, I really like this one too. Funny to note that I seem to like this one more than other people do. Not that they don't like it, but the previous one overall got more impressive feedback and comments. And that's a big part and kind of a funny part of putting out creative work, right? You never know what other people will think, and it rarely lines up with what you think, and that's just part of it. Speaking of music and not knowing what people will like, this was fun. I got an email from Apple Music this week letting me know that one of my older songs called Let's Think About This has passed the 100 all-time plays mark. That's hilarious how small a number that is. And also, that song is nowhere near one of my favorites. It's actually fairly low down, fairly far down the list. But at least according to Apple Music, it's my number one song. Honestly, it tickles me to have anyone listening to it at all, right? I don't know how that happens. Literally, they can't be searching for it, right? Must come up in their automatic feed or something. Anyway, that was fun. Another up, a local renewable energy organization held an EV day this past weekend where people, brought their cars and anyone interested could come take a look, take a drive if they want. They've done this a couple times before, and for those, took our Tesla. But this time, Teslas are old news, right? And a little problematic as well. So instead, I took my cool new electric scooter, and I must say, it was sort of the star of the show. I mean, not really. It was a very small show. Hardly anyone was there other than the people who brought their cars. But still, quite a few took a ride on the scooter. It was pretty fun, showing it off, talking it up. I would not be surprised if a few more showed up in our little town. That made me very happy. For our downs, our other car, we have an older Chevy SUV, 2010 is the year. The air conditioning stopped working a couple weeks ago for the second time. Took it in, replaced the fluid with that. Cost like $350 to do that, which seemed crazy. And then it quit again a week later, so I was pissed about that. Turns out it needs new lines, which is going to be like $1,300 on top of what it already cost. The power steering pump needs replacing. That's another $1,300. At this point, it is probably not worth putting more money into that car. It served us great all these years we've had it, but now we're feeling sort of stuck. It's miserable without air conditioning. Nobody wants to drive it like that. The power steering is making a terrible noise, makes you nervous, doesn't really feel safe to take it on trips. But also, there are no great options we can think of to replace it. We don't want to buy another electric car at this point. No plug-in hybrid will do what we use this one for, so we're feeling sort of stuck. And that's kind of a bummer. First world problem, but still. A medical downer. I mentioned a while ago, some months ago, I had the cardiac ablation procedure where they basically burn these little circles on the inside of your heart to stop it from going into altered rhythms. And the promise of that procedure was that it would allow me to get off the blood thinner. And the doctor at the time was super clear that if the procedure was a success and I had no arrhythmias for 3 months afterward, I would be able to get off those meds. So I've been getting mixed signals from the team since then. It's been closer to 5 months now. Still not saying it's okay to stop the meds, though everything is going great. Starting to get a little bit frustrated with that. I had my official follow-up call with the cardiac NP this week, nurse practitioner. And by the way, the original doctor is no longer with the practice, but the NP was very clear that that original promise that previous doc made was not something she agreed with. And she made a convincing case based on my other underlying conditions and how devastating a stroke would be if that happened, which is the risk. Her recommendation is to stay on the blood thinners basically for the rest of my life. That was a big disappointment. I don't have any trouble with the meds themselves, no side effects, anything like that. But I'd rather not, right? If I don't have to take them, I'd rather not. And they are pretty expensive, like $500 a month for the rest of my life. That adds up. So I was not happy about that. I mean, I do trust the NP. She seemed great. But those expectations the original doc set were not right. Getting off the meds, again, was basically the primary benefit of the procedure. She was very clear about it. That was the trade-off. You can keep having these episodes, keep taking the meds, or you can have this procedure and make it all go away. But now, after going through all that, the med situation is basically the same as it was before. The complete opposite of the original promise. Anyway, not the end of the world, I know, but was not happy about that, and I'm probably never going to be happy about it. Anyway, that's ups and downs this week. Next up, top stories. The big story this week is the horrible tax bill the Republicans just passed. I honestly didn't think it would be this bad, but it's worse. You really can't hardly believe they did it. I assume you've heard, but it is the largest transfer of wealth from the poor to the rich in U.S. history. And that's not even the worst of it. It'll kick 17 million people off their health insurance. It gets rid of the SNAP program, which provides school meals and food support for 18 million children. It increases energy costs. They're actually not only getting rid of renewable energy subsidies, they're adding surcharges to wind and solar projects, literally trying to kill that industry while giving new support to fossil fuel projects. This is a straight-up gift in exchange for big oil industry campaign donations, and it will kill our lead in renewable energy. It's a huge gift to China. It just sets us back so far. It's incredibly short-sighted and self-destructive. The bill also adds over $3 trillion to the national debt. Do not ever let another Republican tell you they're worried about the debt. They are liars. They have no credibility on that, if they ever did. One of the worst items for me is a massive, explosive increase in money for ICE, like unprecedented, billions of dollars. ICE's budget will now be larger than many countries' entire military budgets, like more than Israel's military budget, if you can imagine that, more than the FBI, ATF, U.S. Marshals, Bureau of Prisons combined. That one scares me because those guys are already out of control, right? I can't imagine them giving them 100 times more resources. And just to make it even more depressing, the bill includes $40 million for a, quote, National Garden of American Heroes. It's a new sculpture garden. Any guesses who will be featured in that? Anyway, you cannot say enough bad things about how truly cruel and damaging this bill is. And of course, it is completely owned by the Republicans. And the cowardice and the lies they are telling about it is just mind-boggling. Trump himself came out and said, quote, Democrats are voting to destroy Social Security, destroy Medicare, and destroy Medicaid. And we're voting to make them perfect. They're going to destroy Medicaid, they're going to destroy Medicare, and Social Security will follow, end quote. It is the exact opposite of reality and the truth. Democrats did everything they could to stop this bill. Republicans pushed through cuts to Medicaid, unprecedented cuts to Medicaid. Social Security is sure to follow. It's a straight-up, 180-degree, bald-faced lie. In Congress, these hardline politicians, deficit hawks, make strong statements. No way I'll ever vote for this terrible bill. It'll hurt the people in my district. Hospitals will close, blah, blah, blah. And then they vote for it anyway and pretend it doesn't do what it does. Anyway, it is a truly dark moment. The only possible bright spot is that it will likely kill Republicans' chances in the next election and hopefully beyond that. People are going to feel the pain of this, and most of it falls on Trump supporters. So that's the big story this week, and it is a big deal. I'm also concerned again about the mind-boggling decisions from the Supreme Court. They just seem to be making this stuff up. It's not based in actual precedents. It's not based in logic, really, or at least that I can understand, reality. I just don't understand how they can take these positions. And none of the experts I follow, and I listen to quite a few legal podcasts, it seems like they're all kind of scratching their heads too. This latest decision saying that district courts can't issue nationwide injunctions against what they see as unconstitutional policies. So the president can do things that are blatantly unconstitutional, like in clear violation of the text, like, for example, disregarding birthright citizenship. And then a court, when it comes before them, all they can say is, no, this must stop in our district. Other districts, I can't do anything about that. So every district somebody's going to have to sue separately. It takes forever. It's complicated. And the weirdest part of it, fundamental constitutional rights will vary depending on where you live. And the government can use that fragmentation and delay to push forward with things that, again, are clearly illegal. It's just a nightmare. Speaking of nightmares, new topic. USAID officially ended this week. The cuts there could lead to 15 million deaths over the next 5 years, the poorest of the poor around the world. We could have easily stopped it. And we're doing that so we can pay for a new sculpture garden of American heroes. We've pulled out of Gavi, I think it's pronounced Gavi, which is the Global Vaccine Alliance. This provides vaccines to millions of people around the world who can't otherwise afford them. Thank you, RFK Jr. This will not only kill people around the world, of course it will, but, diseases are known to cross borders too, right? It's cruel, it's stupid, it's dangerous. On the corruption front, Eric Trump, son of Donald, this week speculated he could imagine running for president in the future. That's a great idea, isn't it? Let's be more like North Korea. Trump just launched a new line, I'm not kidding, maybe you heard, a new line of fragrances. Trump brand fragrances. Cologne, perfume, while he's president. What are we even doing? This is just one big side hustle for him, and he's making hundreds of millions of dollars while he's in office. I'll say this, when we do win back the House, and maybe even the Senate because of this terrible bill, the first thing we should do, seriously, is impeach this guy and get him out of there. This just has to stop. For the crazy of the week, this is actually a terrible one. A lot of times these are kind of funny. This is anything but funny. Maybe you heard. Some young guy, like 20 years old, in Idaho, set a fire in the forest on purpose to draw firefighters out who would come to the scene. And then He ambushed them, killed 2 of them before killing himself, shot him from a distance. What could he possibly have been thinking, right? And you first hear that, and you're outraged at him. Of course, the damage he's done to those families, those communities, it's devastating. But he also clearly must have been in some sort of desperate, damaged mental state. There's no way you can do that as a normal, healthy person. You just can't. Anyway, that's a sad thing this week. A reminder, we have a video, why everyone's going crazy and what you can do about it. There's a link in the notes. Always is a link there. It's worth a look. Helps understand at least some of how people can get so far off track with their thinking and feeling. In the good news category, there actually is some this week. A couple of items right here in Wisconsin. Our governor, Tony Evers, was able to work a deal with Republicans. And just that sentence seems hard to believe. But they cut a budget deal that actually saves Medicare funds in our state. Hundreds of millions of dollars were set to go away. Republicans did the right thing, kept that money for our state. Also, our state Supreme Court issued a ruling that protected abortion access in Wisconsin. And that was a direct result of Democrats turning out in that last Supreme Court election. So elections matter. Good things can happen. We just need to show up and do what needs to be done. All right, that's top stories this week. Next up, Inner Game Gold. Last week, we talked about how we should avoid comparing our inner life or early stages of a project with other people's outer lives or their final, polished, finished work. Always a helpful reminder. This week, it's time for another helpful reminder, which is gratitude, the ever helpful gratitude exercise. I'm thinking about it this week because I'm just especially feeling grateful in my own life right now. The music work I've been doing has been satisfying. The weight loss thing's been working. Health is feeling very good. I just have a very long list of things I'm genuinely thankful for. And I'm reminded how helpful it is to have that feeling in your life, helpful and just lovely. So that's Inner Game Gold this week. We have a couple of versions of a gratitude exercise we talked about before. There's mine where I pretend I've just regained some basic functionality like being able to walk or breathe without it hurting or use my hand again. Really basic things. And then just imagine how happy I would be to have that back if I had lost it, and appreciating all that basic functionality I do have. And then the Sam Harris version, where you imagine something terrible has happened, the kind of thing where you'd give anything to get back to how things were before, and then realize that life you have right now, this moment, is exactly that life you'd give anything to get back to. That one always tickles me, just the perspective shift in that. Anyway, that's our goal this week. Gratitude and some sort of intentional exercise to bring that feeling into your day. Speaking of gratitude, if you are enjoying the pod, please take a moment and give us a nice review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. Every review helps us reach more listeners, and I would be eternally grateful for your support. All right, next up, raise your outer game. First, a quick follow-up to my comments a couple weeks ago about AI. The Pope, our new Pope, came out with a statement this week on the AI risks for children. He said, among other things, quote, access to data must not be confused with intelligence, end quote. That's a great line and super important. The more we just look up answers, the less we learn ourselves, right? How to think and reason and analyze and create. And those are really core developmental human abilities that we do not want to lose. It also speaks to what I wanted to talk about this week, which is creativity, and specifically doing creative work in your life, some kind of creative work. And I don't mean just like the arts. It could be anything. My wife's a big gardener, and that is a super creative activity for her. She's creating spaces, the flower gardens, the landscaping that she finds beautiful and pleasing to see and to spend time in. That's creative work. And that's the big insight I've had lately working on my own stuff again. I like the process. I like the work. I like having work like that in my life. But beyond that, it's just occurring to me that I also end up with some of my favorite music. And it's sort of by definition, the process of crafting a final recording like that is basically just constant problem-solving iterations. You listen, something's not quite right, you come up with a fix for that. You listen some more, you notice something else, not quite right, you fix that. The lyric isn't quite working, you work on that, you fix that, and then at some point, there's nothing left to fix, which means every element, every moment of that piece is pleasing to you, right? And you now have a piece of music that you genuinely like because it's been finely crafted to your personal taste. So back to gardening, it's the same thing. Every square foot has been planned and planted and cultivated and designed to fit her aesthetic for that spot. And when it's done, she loves it. Of course she does. Our neighbors put in a new deck and a pergola. Same thing there. And I expect it's basically the same for all creative work. And I just think that's the greatest thing. As you know, I've been struggling for a while with what to do or not do with music and why I would even do it. But now I see that one big reason is simply because it brightens up my life to have the songs in it. And that feels like a perfectly good and good enough reason to do it. Anyway, it makes me laugh a bit. It's taken me this long to realize this. But I'm really feeling very good about the whole project. So for the rest of us, I want to suggest that you lean into this, into bringing creative work more into your life, whatever that is for you. I think you'll find it is one of the best things you can do to enjoy yourself more, to enrich your life, and just feel good about yourself and your life. If you have something you've always wanted to do but haven't started, now's a great time. There are so many resources available now online, especially for basically anything you would want to do. There's no reason not to jump in and get started. If there's something you have done in the past but have sort of drifted away from it, you can pick that back up. If you're already doing something, you can take it to the next level. Stretch yourself, take a class, try something new. My daughter just finished a writing class that was pretty expensive for her with one of her favorite authors. She loved it. I'm taking a couple of online courses to learn more about mixing and production, having a great time with those and really hearing the difference in the final product, which is excellent. There's just so many ways now to bring more creative work into your life, and I strongly suggest you consider doing that. And that's Raise Your Outer Game for this week. See if you can't find a way to take your creative life up a notch or two. By the way, if you are into creative work, I don't normally position it this way, with all the sports work and stuff, but one of the main reasons I originally wrote Raise Your Inner Game was for creatives. The book is specifically designed to help you keep from getting distracted and stuck in your head so you can get into your most creative state and do your best work. So you might want to think about checking that out if you haven't. And again, you do this kind of work. Amazon or raiseyourgame.com. Both good resources for that. All right, next up, our challenge of the week. This week we have two to choose from. One is to do a gratitude exercise, always a lovely experience. The other is to take some small first step toward boosting your creative game. And I guess I'll leave that up to you. Whichever one speaks to you would be a great thing to do this week. For gratitude, just take a moment, think about the things you are grateful for. I'm sure there are many of them. You could also do one of the exercises I mentioned, mine, regaining lost function, thankful for that. Sam Harris, this is the life you'd give anything to get back to if something bad had happened. For your creative game, just think about what it might look like to take whatever it is further. What's the activity? Where are you now with it? What would it look like to take it up a notch? What would be a first step you could take? Just takes a couple of minutes of thinking there. As always, I would write that down on a project sheet of some kind, and then pick a time, take that first step, and you're on your way. All right, that's our challenge of the week. Next up, highly recommended. Still enjoying the book, The Surf House? Turns out it's a bit of a mystery thriller and a pretty good one. It's not really a crime or a spy story, so it's nice to be in a different domain for that kind of a story. Anyway, about a third of the way in. So far, so good. I mentioned the F1 movie. I liked it. It wasn't the most exciting thing I've ever seen. The same director did Top Gun Maverick a few years ago now. That was genuinely thrilling, but it's still very good. Brad Pitt is good and, fun to look at. Much of it was filmed at real Formula One races, so it's fun to see actual people I recognize there, the drivers, owners, etc., from the sport. It's pretty exciting. They do a great job, I think, of communicating the intensity of racing, and I genuinely like the story arc of the main character. At the same time, Margaret's not interested, so it's not for everyone, but if it does sound like you might like it, I do recommend it. All right, that's our show this week. Thank you as always for joining. Let me know if you have any questions. Otherwise, have a great week. Keep up the good work. I will see you next time.